So hi, Writer Moms Inc. We're here. I'm Abby Matthews, and this is my friend. This is my friend KJ Dell'Antonia.
Hi.
And KJ is here today to talk to us about all sorts of things. You're really good at talking about all sorts of things. So
pretty much, yeah.
I mean, we kind of have an agenda for this talk, but really it might go in a totally different direction. So we'll just go with the flow. But we're here today to, first off, I kind of want everyone to see your new book cover because I love your book cover. And you have your t-shirt on. I like the way you're branded.
I'm on brand today.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's a sweater, so I'm not going to be able to wear this for much longer, but then the book will come out in August, and I'll be like, I'm wearing my sweater.
No, you know what we need to do is make you a t-shirt. Like, see, I'm on brand today, too. I have my Friends Don't Let Friends Write Bad Books t-shirt. My go-to. So we're just going to have to make you a t-shirt.
I'll probably need a t-shirt.
Yeah. So anyway, do you want to tell us about your book?
So yeah, this has been so fun. So from here's the book perspective, it is a thoroughly researched look at why we are not as happy as I think a lot of us thought we would be as parents, and what we can do about it. What we can do about it being the really important part. You will not feel bad about yourself while reading this book. You will feel happy about the things you are doing and hopefully find some things to do to make you happier. So that's like the contents of the book. Writing it, when I talk to writers, I always say, it was sort of on me to write a parenting book because I had been writing, journalisting about parenting for 10 years. And it took me a solid 2 years to figure out what about parenting would I like to write a book about. Some of it I was like, oh, everything's been written. Like I could write Overwhelmed, but Bridget Schulte already wrote that. And I could write Maxed Out, but Katrina Alcorn already wrote that. And I could write All Joy and No Fun, but Jennifer Senior has cleared that. And then I was like, okay, well, speaking of All Joy and No Fun, why is this not fun? So then I came up with this brilliant idea. I was going to write about how to make it fun. And I made this list of fun things. And I looked at the list and I was like, I do not want to do fun things. I don't want to do any more things. More things is a bad plan. And that's what led me. But the really important message here, and we were talking about it on the Am Writing podcast 2 weeks ago, is don't agree to write a book you don't want to write. That's a terrible idea.
Do you know, I think it was, it's not Dan Blank. Of course, whenever I think Dan, that's where my mind goes. Donald Miller. Okay. My husband likes the Story Brand podcast, and Donald Miller said this thing the other day that actually was really brilliant. And he said, the first qualification you have to have in order to write a book actually has nothing to do with writing and has everything to do with the fact, can you obsess about the thing you want to write about for a good solid year at least?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And possibly longer. Do you really want to be in this? And I would say and then Gretchen Rubin, who I think must be quoted on all things,
right.
Also has great words about that. She said, just don't write the boring parts. So if you get, if you find yourself going, well, this bit is not very interesting, then just find a way to smush that bit into one paragraph and keep going. So I took that to heart too.
Well, I mean, I'm excited about reading your book because I'm basically excited about all the things that you write and put out and all your little tiny videos. And every time you put something out, I always blast it out to my kid's teacher and all my friends. And I'm like, listen to this because this makes me feel so good about myself. And that's the thing that I love about your writing, KJ, is there are a lot of these oh, me too, I've been there. She's talking about me kind of moments. And they just make me feel like a normal person. It's not, like you said, one more thing that you have to do in order to be the perfect parent. It's, I can't handle one more thing.
Totally not. Please, no more things. No more things to do.
So what I thought would be really interesting to talk about today, because so you have this book in your hands and it's a nonfiction book.
Yeah.
But I know that last year.
That's my second nonfiction book. Wait, do I have my first?
Here, while you're looking for it, I'll say hi to Aleda. I know I can see that Aleda's here, and she made a comment and said who it was because I think she knows. We can't see who's commenting, so just for the sake of everybody listening right now, you can't see anything.
Book. This is the original of my first book. This was out in 2006. It's called Reading with Babies, Toddlers, and Twos, and then they actually reissued it. So.
Oh, nice.
So I have two nonfiction books. I did this with my co-author Susan Straub. So I have two nonfiction books to my credit at this point.
Excellent. So you've got nonfiction under your belt, and I know
I've done that.
Last year for NaNoWriMo, you started a fiction novel.
I did. Wait, a fiction novel, Abby?
A novel, fiction novel. No. I'm only a writer. I don't know words.
Novel. Okay.
So,
yes.
Anyway, yeah, a work of fiction.
NaNoWriMo. I started fiction. Yes. Yes, I did.
Let's talk about that because I think that's a fascinating transition.
I think so too. I mean, it's like you think you know how to do this thing, and you do know how to put your butt in a chair and type words for lengthy periods of time. But shaping those words into a work of fiction is, it's different than the kind of nonfiction book that I wrote. Now, I think if you write the kind of nonfiction that's more of like if you wrote The Perfect Storm kind of thing,
right?
That is actually probably not as dissimilar. But my fiction, which is your sort of big idea book, your process, and it's pretty easy to outline.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really different.
I remember when you finished your 2-tier outline with Jenny, you were like, I did it, I finished it. That was the hardest thing I thought about the whole process.
It was really hard, but I am at the tail end of a really solid draft, and that outline, I mean, things have changed, but it's just, then you go back to, like, I actually literally was just back in there today going, okay, I there's this sub story that I didn't do enough with. And so what happens with it in this bit, and what happens with it in this bit, and what, like, I don't have to think what's the whole, So for me to pin that down has been really great. I know there are people that don't like to write that way, but it really worked for me.
Aleda, are you listening to this? Because I know she was struggling with the idea of taking a whole story and boiling it down and getting your parts and pieces and kind of knowing how much do you need to know before you go into the story. And I think that's the beautiful thing about nonfiction is you sort of know everything going in, or if you don't know it, you know what you need to research, or you know what you need to go and seek out. Whereas
you usually write a proposal, unless it's memoir, totally different. You usually write this proposal. I mean, Jessica Leahy, who's my co-host on Am Writing, and the author of The Gift of Failure, she just sold her second book, and her proposal is 60-some pages long.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is obviously, somebody who's an accomplished, she probably could have sold it on less, but you sell it on less, and then you don't have a roadmap, and you don't have a roadmap that your editor has signed on to. So in a way, the 2-tier outline is kind of like the proposal. It gives you a roadmap that sort of you and your inner editor have signed on to. Like both like, okay, this is where we're going. And every time I'm struggling with like, well, what would happen here and what would someone do here? I try to go back to that, like, okay, why am I writing this? Like, what's the overarching point? Which still is a little hazy for me. I wish I had an overarching point that was like, love conquers all or something, because mine's a little vaguer than that. But.
Well, so just for the people listening, so they understand what we're talking about, KJ and I are talking about this thing called a 2-tier outline that our book coach, we'll say she makes us do it. She doesn't make us do it, but it's a really helpful exercise.
To the best of my knowledge, have a whip, but yeah.
Yes.
You want to work with her, and we did. You got to do this.
And you do what she says. And the 2-tier outline, you start off 2 pages, and you walk your way through the story, and it's like,
So you start off at 14 pages.
Did you start with 14 pages?
Like I started with a ton. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Your outline was like, yeah.
So, well, you're supposed to start with 2 pages, and it's like, what happens and why it matters. And it's just like 2 sentences. What happens, why it matters. And then that leads to the next thing. And it's what happens, why it matters, which leads to this, what happens, why it matters. And it's just the 2 pages, or 14 in KJ's.
Mine ended up at 3 pages. So.
Oh, well, so see, I did 2. And Melanie had 17 pages when we did this together. And I said, well, why is Melanie 17 pages? I was all affronted. And Jenny said, because Melanie did her 2 pages right, so I gave her 3 pages, which she did right, so I gave her 4 pages. And Melanie ended up, really, she sketched her story out.
Right.
Pretty scene by scene, whereas mine, I didn't. I had 2 pages. That was it. And even at that, the funny thing is, I realized I had 2 books. Like in the end, my 2 pages ended up being the span of 2 books. And so, yeah, it was interesting, but I know to revise it now. I know my next step for revision is I have to go back and revisit that 2-tier outline, which when Jenny said that, I thought in my brain, I went, dun, dun, dun. Like,
yeah, she's about to tell me how to revise. I have 4 more scenes to draft, which sounds like la 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 la, but really they're all really hard ones. And one of them required that I because one of them was like the reappearance of a character who hadn't been there since the first couple, and he should have been like. So I had to go back and go, all right, what would this character like? What would his involvement have been at every single stage? So this morning, I got 1,000 words, but a lot of them were go back and do this, go back and do this.
Your notes, your mental notes on the side.
No, they weren't mental, they were written.
Oh, yeah. I put my notes in the comments and I talk to myself. I have a constant conversation going in the comments all the way down the side. And when I turn my stuff into Jenny, my submissions, a lot of times I've already started the conversation over there on the side because, I feel like I have to remember all of this. And I mean, how do you remember all of that?
I'm a Scrivener user, so I put the notes in the notes.
Oh, see, I'm a Scrivener. I never say it right. They make fun of me. How do you say it?
I say Scrivener, but it's not like I've said this to a lot of people. It's not a word that I use loud very often.
I say Scrivener. I don't know why I say Scrivener.
Like scribe. That's fine.
Yeah, Scrivener. So anyway, but let's let this sort of segue into the next part that I wanted to talk about. And this is where I really think the interview with KJ shines. And that's, how do you get the work done when you have children underfoot?
Children.
So KJ, you have 4 children. We should preface this.
Children. I try to take into account when I answer this question that they are older now, but I have also been doing this for more than 10 years. So I apparently
well trained
when they were smaller. I have always been really protective of my time and fairly ruthless about getting people out of my house or getting myself out of my house, and understanding that I can't. I can now. I can sit down and spend 2 or 3 hours because my youngest kid is 12. Mm-hmm. Now, realistically, that means he's playing Fortnite. And that's okay. Fortnite is a lot of fun. I played it myself last night again, and I'm terrible at it. I get the appeal. So I can now, but when they were even not very much younger, I really didn't even try to write if they were in the house unless I was not. Mm-hmm. So I spent, and I just, blocks of time just taking them out and I would schedule my blocks of time every day. So now, I'm still really, it's hard for me to sort of remember what I used to do versus what I do now, but I'm really I get up in the morning. I have this new thing that I'm doing, and I wish I had been doing it all along, where at night when I sign everything off, I turn off my Wi-Fi on my laptop.
Oh.
So in the morning, the first thing I'm supposed to do is go into Scrivener and start writing. And in order to not do that, I have to go turn the Wi-Fi back on. And that, this sort of requires a conscious decision. It's sort of, yesterday I was in one of the, how it's like sometimes you're writing and everything's fine. And sometimes you're writing and you're like, I really want to do something else. I really want to do something else. Yesterday, twice I caught myself, once I opened my email, but it doesn't work because the Wi-Fi is off.
Yeah.
And once I went to messages, and it doesn't work because the Wi-Fi is off. So I can't just do the automatic thing. I would have to turn the Wi-Fi on and wait for it. And then I plug my phone in somewhere else because the phone would always work.
Okay, so I'm going to have to figure out if I can go back and incorporate that turn your Wi-Fi trick off into, so I have this thing called Alfred on my computer. I don't know if you've ever heard of Alfred, but it's a series of, it allows you to program your computer to do shortcuts. And so I have a shortcut for everything, and I have a shortcut for writing. So when I turn my computer on in the morning, I think it's Control W, and it opens Scrivener,
whatever it is.
It opens, I'm really bad. It opens the thesaurus on thesaurus.com because I'm a terrible word reuser. That's one of the things I've learned about myself. And it turns on this thing called hipster sound, which, I mean, I'm so hip.
You need that.
It's white noise. It's white noise, like coffee shop white noise. And so I put my headphones on with the coffee shop white noise. My writing program is open. The source is open, and I'm ready to roll.
Right.
I mean, of course, if I add turn off the Wi-Fi, that means that the source and the white noise isn't going to work, but
you could get one of these.
Brilliant. I could. And you know what?
It's really thick. It's got a lot of
like that.
See? Words.
Hey, speaking of really thick things, even though it's a little bit off topic, do you know what this is?
A planner. Oh no, is that your manuscript?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I made a really, really rookie mistake when I printed it. First, I told myself as I compiled it all into Word so that I could take it to Staples and have it printed. I told myself, put page numbers on it, put page numbers on it, put page numbers on it. And guess what I forgot to do? Put page numbers on it. But I put it all together with all of my edits because that's what I wanted, were my edits in my hand so I could open my document on the screen and I would be ready to revise. And when I printed the Word document from the photocopier at Staples, it like defaulted to no edits, and I didn't realize it until I printed 200 and something pages. Like $22 later, I was like, wait a minute, where are my edits?
Oh, that's
so right now. This is just, it's for looks, but I was really excited.
You should be proud of it.
I'm super proud.
Like write the last scene and everything.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's not come out yet because we're like 5 or 6 months behind in all of our podcast recordings. But Jenny basically told me it was the best thing I had ever written. It was even better than like my previous submission. She said everything I'd done had gotten better and better and better and better. And so it made me feel really good. And like, okay, if I've done it and I've gotten good enough to impress Jenny Nash, now I'm excited to go back and revise it to make the whole thing.
I feel like you'll revise the first part more because by the time you get to the last part, you're gonna be like, I've been revising. Yeah. So we still ask that because I know that's gonna happen to me. I feel like I'm gonna revise the first part like 6 times, and I actually feel like when I read books, sometimes you can tell. Like, the person got in a hurry these last couple of chapters.
They kind of dropped off right about here. So, well, I'm excited that you're going to be revising around the same time that I'm revising.
My goal is to revise. The month of June is revision month for me. I'm working on it's a tight imaginary timeline.
Yeah.
because I want to have this finished before this is actually out in the world. You can pre-order it now, but it doesn't come out until August 21st. So I want to have the book finished. So that then I can focus on that and probably focus on, I will probably also start a new book, but.
So what other tips, well, wait a minute. Before I ask what other tips, is your next book going to be fiction or nonfiction? Like,
I'm going to stick with fiction, but we'll see. Let's see if I can sell this. See if I can finish it. I haven't even finished it yet. See if I can revise it.
And then you'll make your decision.
I'm not counting my cookies before they're hatched.
Before they're baked.
Yeah.
So what other tips you got in your tip bag, in your swipe file? What else can you tell all the moms out there that are feeling bad? Because, you know, the other day somebody said to me, like, well, how did you get the book written? You have little kids. You have little kids at home. And I'm like, first of all, my kids are old enough to know you don't take steak knives out of the drawer and run with them. You don't stick your fingers in a light socket. I was like, I'm sort of past that phase where I have to worry about, like, oh, they're upstairs and they're quiet. They must be doing something wrong, you know.
Right. Well, they may be doing something wrong, but it's not deadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, wrong.
Might just be messy, but you know, nothing I can't handle.
You just let that go.
See, and you guys play Fortnite. My kids play Minecraft.
We went through, we did Minecraft. Fortnite is like Minecraft, but less square.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to tell my kids about it because it'll be a new obsession. But
they're a little. You have to have a PS4. It's like it's for like teenagers, but it really is very much like Minecraft. There's building and there's it's remarkably similar, especially if you play Minecraft in the kill other people mode, which mine eventually got to. So.
You know, I know Jenny said to me when, and for everybody listening, we're talking about Jenny Nash, who is my book coach, KJ's book coach. My friend Melanie, who was supposed to be with us today, but she's not here. She had a work emergency, but she's Melanie's book coach, and she's wonderful. And one of the things that she said to me was when her kids were little, they watched an awful lot of Barney. And so, I mean, that kind of dates us here, but
yeah.
She said they watched an awful lot of Barney and she just didn't feel bad about it.
Well, when mine were little, especially my oldest, his littleness predates little kid computer games. I mean, he predates the iPad. Oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, he watched a lot of Dora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dora.
And that's fine. I mean, it just, I didn't do as much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, when I took over the Motherload blog, that was like 7 years ago now. So my youngest kids were 5. So that was when that was a full-time job. Mm-hmm. So a full-time, but work from home job. And that required, it required nursery school. It required a babysitter to pick them up from nursery school most days. There was a lot of flexibility involved, but there was flexibility in that, like, if something went wrong, I could pick them up from nursery school, but I couldn't pick them up from nursery school and then like play with them all afternoon. Mm-hmm. I needed to, or if I did, God forbid, then I was gonna, from bedtime until 3 a.m. there I would be, because there was a schedule and there were things to be done. And so yeah, they watched, if they needed to, they watched TV, or I just shouted, "Go away!" And or like I said, well, no, I mean, I had a lot of help. Yeah. People pretend they don't have help, or they just don't acknowledge their help. I had a lot of help, and I had an older kid that, if necessary, I could be like, keep worrying line out, and yeah.
It's funny that you say that about having help, because I think there's a stigma against having help sometimes in today's age of like Instagram perfect lives.
Oh, really? Pretend their nanny's not there, or their baby.
Yeah. Or that their mom doesn't live, across town and can't come and help them. I mean, I've never lived close to my mom. I mean, I'm 18 hours from my mom right now. When we move, I'll be 9 hours from my mom, which feels like decadently close, because
that's much closer.
Yeah, I mean, we cut that distance in half. But, I've never had someone that I could call, but I made, a network of friends and neighbors that we could help pinch hit, when you needed it. And that's, I mean, that's the thing. We all need a little help. And so
Absolutely. Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with asking for it.
Before I had the paid work, I still had help to get the paid work, but I also had a lot more of, you take my kids for this afternoon, I'll take your kids for Wednesday afternoon, we'll trade back and forth. And then once you're working full time, I've never had full-time help, but I have always had significant help. And I don't have any driving kid help anymore other than sort of, hey, help, could you possibly? But I still have help. I have somebody who cleans.
Oh my God, which would just be...
take care. And if I have to go out of town, it's actually the same person. I've had the same, this is my babysitter. I've had the same babysitter for 14 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I value her. I mean, yeah. I couldn't possibly do it without her. I could manage some things now. I really only work while they're at school. There's 4 of them. 1 drives, but the other 3 have all their stuff, and I want to spend time with them because they're older. So
yeah.
So don't feel guilty. So don't feel guilty because you shouldn't feel guilty. I mean, we should not spend all our time focusing on our kids. It's not good for them, and it's not good for us. I mean, this is my happier parent spiel here. If they're not bleeding, they are not number one. You're uniquely the grown-up who can uniquely make money and have a job and make dinner and drive people places. Therefore, you win. It's just that's, I mean, really, our parents were not going, oh my goodness, I cannot play a tennis game because my child might be slightly bored while it wanders around I spent so much of my childhood, and my parents actually both worked, but they also played tennis. And I spent a significant amount of my childhood wandering around indoor tennis facilities, picking up balls and bouncing them.
Hey,
and I was an only child, so I didn't even have like a brother or sister to throw the ball at.
So I have very vivid memories of my mother over the summers. My mom was a school secretary, so she got the exact same breaks that we got, which is super convenient when you work in education and you have kids. So my mother was a voracious reader. She read those red Harlequin romance novels. She read them like they were just candy. And so I had
whales because they inhale them like they're like the little tiny things whales eat.
Oh, well, my mom did. And I just have these vivid memories of her sitting out on the screened porch. She had this lounger out on the screened porch, and she would read these romance novels. And there was a glass door that separated the living room from the screened porch. And so we could see her, she could see us. But my sister and I routinely would trick my brother. So he would do something that would just annoy us. We'd go, I'm going to tell mom. And then we would storm our way out to the screen porch, and you could see us through the glass door, and we'd be like, hey, mom, what you doing today? Is that a good book? And he'd come running after us. I hit you, but you. And my mother would go, whoa, 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 whoa. You hit your sister? He told on himself every single time.
That is really funny.
And so, but yeah, we survived. I mean, I think I only tied him to a tree once or twice while my mom was reading a book. And
you would have if your mom had been sitting there staring at you too, right? So
yeah, probably. So.
Yeah.
Oh, so listen, I think we have some comments down here. So I've been trying to sort of, watch some of the comments that have come through to see if there are any questions. So if anybody listening, we have 2 viewers watching right now. If anybody listening has questions for KJ, go ahead and stick them in the comments. I love, somebody said at one point, oh my God, I have such a hard time nailing down my point too. I'm not alone. I'm crying tears of happiness. I can almost guarantee you that was Zeleda, because I know she was on here earlier.
My point is all of it's kind of this, but kind of that. It doesn't, yeah.
You know what? Mine has changed through the course of my book. It's not done a total 180 and gone in a different direction, but it's I've refined it a little more and refined it a little more, and then I tweaked it some. And now that I've gotten to the end, I'm okay, I know exactly what the point is. now to go back and tweak those beginning parts.
I'm kind of having that experience too. I think I know now. But it doesn't boil itself down to 3 words very easily.
No. And so here's somebody else said, I'm excited about reading How to Be a Happier Parent. I need that. So I think we all need that. Let's see. And someone else said, I just turn on Netflix and hand over the remote. So we all do.
When they're not playing Fortnite, that's what they're doing. Perfect,
right? So anyway, here is when there's actually an author, I can't remember her name, who wrote a book about the benefits.
Manoush Zomorodi.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, from the Note to Self podcast. It's a really great book.
Actually, I've heard that before too, about it's good for your kids to occasionally be bored. And for me, here's my trick. Okay, so my kids play an awful lot of iPad. I'm not even going to lie and say that they don't. And part of the reason why they play an awful lot of iPad is because I let them. I always sort of felt like, if I made it mysterious and I said, you only get 10 minutes every day to play iPad, that then when you go to take it away, like I have to wait another 24 hours and they sort of melt down. I mean, now my kids, I just take it away. It's no big deal. Like they know they can have it back some other time. So they're very good about turning it off and doing something else if I ask them. But my sneaky trick is I don't plug them in and charge them at night. Oh, your iPad's out of battery? Guess you got to go outside and play.
It'll just take a little while. Yeah, that's a good one.
Go on out. So it's like turning off the Wi-Fi. So, somebody said bored and brilliant. So there you go.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And I was just listening to the Hurry Slowly podcast, which is Jocelyn Blythe.
I heard you talk about that
favorite.
One.
So I think that's what I was listening to.
Did you tweet about that, or was that on your podcast? I
tweeted about it. It really is one of my favorite podcasts. And this was sort of on the topic of being bored. And she was talking about how how few hours any of us spend anymore not being stimulated or talked to, not with no input. Mm-hmm. Like you have sort of constant input. You might be
in the bathroom.
You might be watching TV. You might be playing a game, or even like talking to other people. You sort of have constant. Whereas our grandparents were like, I must plow for 6 hours, and I will be out there by myself with my thoughts. Or I must walk to school, and maybe I'm with someone, and maybe I'm not. But I'm probably here with my thoughts, and we are just alone with our thoughts. That doesn't happen very often unless we make it happen.
Yeah.
And, I take my podcast. I'm alone with the podcast. So
yeah.
It's not the same.
Yeah. So, speaking of all that, I have to go be alone with my boxes. Okay. I have to go pack a few more. I'm so glad that you joined us.
Here, before we go.
Look. You have your little one. Come here, Cosmo. Come here, buddy. Look, I have the giant version of your little one.
That is the giant version. I have a big dog in here too, but he's resting. We're gonna let him rest.
Right, buddy? So, all right. Well, I'm gonna end this broadcast, writer moms. Let's see.